Welcome. This podcast is a collaboration of Religica and URI, United Religions Initiative.
Duncan Wielzen is the current United Religions Initiative Europe Chairperson. He is a pastoral worker in the Roman Catholic Diocese of Rotterdam in the Netherlands and is so committed to his local context, as you'll hear. Dr. Wielzen is also the chief editor of the 2017 text, Interfaith Education for All, Theoretical Perspectives and Best Practices for Transformative Action. Take a listen.
You are the URI Europe Chairperson and ex officio trustee, but you're the current URI European Chairperson. And what does that entail?
The way URI is structured, we have URI present in 8 regions across the world. Europe is just one of these regions. And in Europe, we also have cooperation circles, say the people at the grassroots level who are forming these circles. And these circles consist of at least 7 persons from at least 3 different backgrounds.
In each circle?
In each circle. And this background could be either religious background or non-religious background, secular background. So we have humanists and atheists also joining URI in these circles. And across Europe, there are about 60 of these cooperation circles. But there's also like a board, a European board, which is there to assist these cooperation circles in whatever they need, but also to promote and to encourage the philosophy and the work and the principles of URI within Europe. So we have the board, and in the board there are also people who are members of their own cooperation circles in their own countries. So we have people from various countries in the board, people from Germany, Netherlands, of myself, people from Bulgaria, Bosnia, Sarajevo, England. Those people who are part of the board are also people from different European countries and from their own cooperation circles.
And in Europe, or I imagine across the globe, if a community of 7 or more wanted to become a cooperation circle, just to begin there, say in the European context, what would they do?
I think that's the power of URI and the structures. So cooperation circles have an enormous amount of independency. So as long as they adhere to the principles of URI, they can form their own circle and they can engage in whatever activity they would like to, which is in support of these principles. So for example, if in their own community there's a conflict between people from different religious backgrounds, they can mediate in that conflict as being a cooperation circle. They can also act proactively in order to avoid conflicts from happening. And what usually happens is that they will engage in activities that bring these peoples together in order for them to get to know each other and to appreciate each other's, value each other's background or religious beliefs. So each cooperation circle functions according to the context and the need of their own community.
Could you name just maybe 2 examples of or maybe you just want a context of need where these folks said, we need to gather, but we could also use the regional and international support to do so.
Yeah.
One that inspires you and your leadership there.
Yes. So I will give one example from my own context, living and working in the Netherlands. I'm working in the city of The Hague, which is a very international city, but it's also the most segregated city as we see it in the Netherlands. You have entire communities where people do not relate with each other, or they don't even know each other. Even if they live in the same street, they don't know each other.
But is this because of different immigrant populations?
Yes.
Okay.
The population is mixed. You have people who have been coming in since the 60s of the previous centuries, and also the recent immigrants who are coming in. So we have areas in The Hague that are very segregated. Now there is a cooperation circle in The Hague which tries to bring these people together. What we have done the last couple of years, we have used the International Interfaith Harmony Week, the first week in February, which is highly on the agenda of URI. We have used that week to engage in activities to bring these people together. And one of the activities we had, for example, was an activity where we talked with each other about the environment, the value of sustaining the environment. Well, that is an issue that concerns everybody, whether you're religious or not. So we initiate this activity, inviting people to come and to voice their own concern. And then we look at different religious traditions, how they cope, how do they deal, what are their views on engaging in support of the environment. So we had people using the Bible, the Holy Scripture, people from the Islamic faith using the Quran and using verses from the Quran that are in support for sustainable development, and also people from the Hindu faith. And these people joined together and were engaged in a conversation. And then people with other faiths or no faiths could also contribute to that conversation. So in that way, we had a very nice activity engaging the people from the community, diverse people, on a topic that concerns everyone.
Is that what inspires you most in your leadership as I hear you speaking to it? I mean, it's excellent for the local community. It's incredibly important that URI is doing this work. It's bringing people together, but it's also doing something in the world that's essential right now in terms of how we intend to inherit the future, right? And hand it on to our children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
Is that what you find? Is there something about all of that that's inspiring your work in particular? How do you frame it?
Well, I think one thing that has inspired me to start working with URI, apart from my own background, is a phrase from Martin Luther King, where he says, "The time is always right to do right." So you don't have to wait to do right. It is always right to do right. And that's the phrase that really inspires me. And that has kind of motivated me also to engage in the work of URI. But again, my own background, I was born and raised in Suriname. It's a multicultural society with people from different corners of the world who are living together. And I grew up in a street with Muslims and Hindus and people with different Christian backgrounds living together in that street. So from a very early days on, I was introduced and nourished by an interfaith environment. So that's part of my DNA, I would say. And that also motivated me to engage myself with URI.
It's so inspiring because there are people from around the world who, just as you're mentioning, on their own street, this isn't theoretical. This is like the daily, pragmatic aspect. Your neighbors and friends are coming from numerous walks of life. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that when you think about the nature of different religions working cooperatively, is it the religions, or do you think first of the people like those on your street who embody the values of those religions?
Yes, I think nobody is born as a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian. You become, and you are nurtured in that tradition. But first of all, you're a human being, and that's what we all share in common: your humanness. And when it concerns matters that can be threatening to humanity, to our humanness, I think we don't have to look at where somebody comes from, but the very fact that you are a human being just like me, we share the same future. So that's what I think is very inspirational about URI. URI is an organization, it's not a religion. They are religiously oriented people who constitute URI, but they are also non-religious. And it is the important thing is to discover the common theme, the common thread. What binds us what keeps us together? What is the future that we have together? And based on that, people engage themselves for a common cause.
You pursued a Ph.D. in Catholic theology?
Yeah.
You could have chosen to be a university professor or served in some other way and also been, in that regard, perhaps a theoretician and an academic and a pragmatist and all that.
Yeah.
But you've chosen URI as a place to be able to engage the world through the education you've received.
Yeah.
Why this kind of work? And then why URI in that regard?
Well, I have to put it in context. I'm a full-time pastor. That's my job. That's my paid job. I have a full-time job in the church as a Roman Catholic pastor. I'm not a priest. I'm not a deacon. I'm a trained theologian. I was commissioned by the bishop to engage in pastoral ministry, and that's my job. That's my full-time job. So everything I do for URI, I do it as a volunteer. Because years after I started working, I felt the urge to give back to the community. I felt being very blessed in my work and my private life, and I felt the need and the urge to give back something to the community. And I went through several options I had, and I tried several things, like engaging for refugees, immigrants, working with Amnesty International as a volunteer. But none of those things really matched with what I really felt, what I really wanted to do, until I came across URI. And when I heard about URI, that was it. I immediately recognized from my own background the value of engaging people across religions and across whatever philosophy of life people have. So that was like a turning point in my life. So when I noticed what URI was about and what it was doing, I devoted myself that this is what I wanted to do next to my job, because I also have a family. I also have the responsibility
All
to
that
take care of
entails.
my family. But I wanted to give back something to the community, and I have the time to do it, or I can make the time to do it. So in that way, I try to navigate through my professional life as a pastor and what I do in private. But to be honest, I went a step further. I tried to incorporate some of my URI responsibilities of duties into my regular pastoral ministry to make it concrete. Just recently, I have organized with a Protestant colleague of mine, we organized to have a walk from our churches to a Hindu temple. And the idea was to bring the people together, people from her congregation and people from my congregation. And we came together in my church and we had this walk towards the Hindu temple, meeting people from the Hindu faith there, eating together with them, engage in dialogue and conversation with them, just to build a common understanding, to get to know each other better. Because as I mentioned to you, The Hague is a very segregated city. So in order to bridge that, we found it necessary to engage in this kind of activity. You could consider it as a URI activity, but it also fits within my work as a pastor within the community. So in that way, I try to integrate what URI is doing, or the work of URI, in my own regular pastoral ministry.
You have children, you mentioned.
Yeah.
I do as well. And I'm finding as my daughter gets older, we're talking a lot about the nature of trust and gratitude, these other things. What are the 2 or 3 values that you think are just essential? And you've already identified a number of things here, but if you had to take a moment and were asked that question, how do you respond?
I think the important thing is to be yourself and to be true to yourself. And that's what I'm trying to learn teach my daughter. Always be true to yourself and be yourself, and don't deviate from that path. And when it comes to leadership, you don't necessarily have to lead people into whatever you think is right or just, but you could lead by example, by just being yourself, being a good person. And I have the privilege of, when I'm having a service, young people come to me and I can bless them. And a common phrase I always use is that you can be a lovable person, that you will grow to be a lovable person, a person with a right, just heart. And I think that's the essence of leadership, that you're lovable, accessible, kind, and lead by example. So that would be one of the qualities I find very important: being a lovable person, being yourself, and be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm. If there was a question you wanted to put in front of us that you said, this is the one we have to respond to, what would be the question that you would ask today that the world needs to be responding to?
That's such a big question. I think one fundamental question is, in what kind of world I would like my grandchild to live in? And that very same question will determine the actions, the choices I will make today.
If you would like to know more about United Religion's initiative, read stories of interfaith in action, visit www.uri.org. And to learn more about Religica and our allies, take a look at www.religica.org. Thanks.